Hi, everyone. This is Amy Major with Spirit Rescue Talk again. I have a wonderful guest here who reached out to me. He is a psychic medium in the paranormal field. He is also a podcast host, which I know he really wants to talk about. His name is JD Hill. I'm really excited to have him on. So I'm going to introduce him now and have him talk a little bit about his history, his background, maybe some stories for you, and we'll get a little bit of really great information today. How you doing today, Jay?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
I'm very welcome to have you on. I did take a look at your background. You have a lot of great information. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Well, being who I am, I'm a psychic medium, but I wasn't always that way. Where I was that way, but I didn't recognize it until later in life. So, go back to probably when I was around 9 or 10. I had a couple different instances where I would just sense different things and just be off on a few things. And I got to the point where when I was in my teenage years, I mean, I was going through adolescence and all that, and I actually saw my first full body apparition at a place where I used to live, and I knew that right then and there that was probably going to follow me around. Why, I wasn't quite sure, but as time went on, I would get flashes of pictures of images and certain things if I would hold something or go to a location and kind of like feel like you're beside yourself. And it was kind of like that whole out of body experience. And so there's been a couple times where I experienced that, but kind of fast forward to when I was 42, which will be almost, it was 10 years this year. I had a stroke, and I used to drink a lot. I was basically running away from my gifts in, who I was. And so I used to drink a lot. And then once I had this stroke, it kind of put everything in perspective. And probably a year or two after that, I started to really, embrace my gifts. And I had quit drinking, and I had, changed my life around, and I just kind of went into it headlong. And probably the last 4 or 5 years, I've just kind of been leaps and bounds and just, connecting with spirit and, doing what I need to do and helping, deceased loved ones, or even, people who are asking for help. And it's been rewarding, but it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of responsibility in that sense. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I've always been this way, but it's just in the last 10 years is when my life changed, where I actually accepted who I was instead of running away from who I was. So,
yeah, I get a lot of reluctancy. I was very reluctant as well. The first, 20 years of my life. What made you run away from it? Was there anything in particular?
I didn't have a support group like I do now. You know what I mean? Not too many people really talked about it. There were people that talked about it, but I couldn't really bring it to my family in that sense. I mean, I just kind of felt different, and I just felt that there was something wrong with me. And, kids would joke, oh, that's, you're going insane, or, I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't want to be that, I don't want to do that. And then I realized after, I would experience it more. And when I got more into the paranormal, I was more accepting of who I was, but I was still running from who I was. You know what I mean? And I would have moments of clarity where I knew what it was. I knew that it always was around me. Paranormal was always around me. Spirits were always around me. And there's times where I had clarity, and I interact with spirits and this and that. But then there were times where I would retreat and, I don't want to do this, I don't want to. So.
When you connect with spirits, do you find that you connect more to those that have crossed over? Do you find that you connect more to earthbound spirits?
They kind of come to me, I mean, if somebody is wanting to talk to a loved one or something like that, and if spirit puts it on my radar, I'll have visions or thoughts or names or words or sounds anywhere from 2 weeks before to a week before to a couple days before, or moments. I mean, it just depends. So I did a reading for somebody, and I had gotten most of the information a week before, and I logged it in, and then when I sat down with this woman, and I knew, because all those thoughts and visions came back to me immediately. So that's just the way I kind of handle it. There would be times where I'll get visions, where I'll get pictures of people and this and that, and I won't know what to do with them, because I'll have to contact somebody that I think I may be involved with. Like, I have a camera guy that I work with that does paranormal investigations and stuff, and he was working on getting places to do psychic walkthroughs, and then where he would document it and stuff like that. So if I would get visions or get thoughts like that beforehand, I would contact him and say, "Are you working on something?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." And then I would tell him what I would see, and he says, "Yeah, you're right on track. You're working with me." I'm like, "Okay." So that's how I kind of did it. I had an instant where I was interviewing on my podcast. I was interviewing a group of people that had a TV show that they didn't have their TV show anymore, but I contacted them when I found their show on Hulu. And so I talked to them. I talked to one of the guys there, and I called him on the phone and talked to him for about a couple hours, and then set everything up. And like a couple days before, I got all these visions of a female, and what she was wearing, and who she was with, and how she died, and the whole nine yards. And it was really scary, because I don't do like murder cases. It kind of freaked me out. Well, I didn't understand what that actually meant. And then I had seen, my last vision was of my friend David, that's with this show, and I was going to interview him. And I thought, okay, that's evidently who I need to talk to. So I called him and talked to him, and I explained to him the situation. And I said, I had a vision of being underwater in a pool, and I see the building behind it, and it's a 2-tier hotel, old wood and the whole nine yards. And so he said, "Oh, wait a minute." And so he sent me a picture, and it was of the old Bonnie Springs in Las Vegas, or in Nevada. And it had the swimming pool with the hotel, and there was, the trees weren't there at that time. So this was years ago. And this lady was underwater. She had evidently drowned, or something happened where I looked through her eyes up through the water, and I've never done that. And that kind of freaked me out. But he validated everything that I was, going through with that. And he said, and after I talked to him, all the visions stopped. They just quit. And then I never really thought about it again. I was like, okay, there was a reason why I had that, but then I had understood that it was this girl, I do believe, was murdered there, or something happened, and she wanted her story told. And that's what a lot of them do. A lot of them want their story to be told in that sense, So yeah, that was
finding
probably
closure.
yeah.
And
So that was
obviously they
one
reached
of
out
them.
to you.
Yeah.
If you're linked into someone who's doing
Right.
an investigation already, they're going to go to you, because you're the medium. You're the
Right.
closest link
Closest
to
link.
whoever. So they're going to go to you for you to be the channel, to be the medium, to be
Mm-hmm.
the message bearer,
Yep.
so that they can find their closure.
Yeah, I have gone through that a couple different times, quite a few actually, and especially when I go to old locations, old buildings, spirits that some of them that are still there. What a lot of people don't realize too is that spirits are everywhere, but they're not as much as people think. Some spirits cross over pretty quickly, but then there's some that just, I would say that there's not a handful, but I would say that not as much as people think. And I run into that a lot, saying, "Oh, somebody died, they got to be hanging out." It's like, not necessarily. And so I run into that with some people in the paranormal field quite a bit. And I said, I'll be able to tell you if they're here or if they've crossed, and I've had to tell a couple people, I'm like, yeah, that person's not here. They're crossed. No, I know that they're here. I'm like, I'm telling you, they're not, but they don't listen to that. They just want the evidence, and and to each his own, hey, do what you got to do, but.
Well, you can also run into residual imprints that can mimic
Right.
spiritual activity. A lot of people think that
Right.
that's a spirit, or you
Yep.
could have a visitation from
Yep.
someone who has crossed over.
Right.
Because they're,
Right.
all of a sudden someone's investigating their space where they
Right.
died. It
Right.
sends a little bit of a link to the spirit on the other side. So they're coming in. And I always
Right.
say, I always think
Right.
the analogy, they're eating popcorn, sitting there
Right.
watching the show. Like,
Right.
what are you doing over
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
So they're
yeah.
gonna feel that energy of that spirit.
Right,
Of course,
right.
it doesn't earthbound.
Right.
all.
Right.
So
And there's some that do come back too. There's some that have crossed and then come back to visit. I mean, that's just,
oh, yeah.
I don't know how it works like that, but I do know a couple places that do that, so.
I tell people the majority of the spirit activity that they sense are visiting spirits that have crossed over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, they're coming back as guides, as
Mm-hmm.
mentors, as teachers, as trainers. They're coming back to help those of us that are still here, boots on the ground. We're still in the
Right.
body. We're still doing the work down here. So a
Mhm,
lot of
mhm.
spirits are going to come in and visit. Just hang out.
Right.
They're going to sit there in their favorite chair, like, yep, how you doing?
Right.
Doesn't mean that they're earthbound.
Right.
And I always tell people, pay attention to what the spirit's intentions are.
Right.
Because if a spirit wants to give you something such as love, encouragement, growth, they want to give
Mhm.
you a warm hug, they're most likely crossed over.
Mhm,
If they're
mhm.
needing something from you, they're needing help, they're needing a voice, they're needing someone to help them into light, they're earthbound because they need something.
Right.
more
Right. I agree 100%. Yep.
from them.
Yep.
So how can you tell the difference if it's residual or possibly an earthbound spirit that you've connected to?
It's just, with me, it's just annoying. I see it. I see basically, if they've already crossed over, I'll see them it's like being on the other side of a wall. Okay.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the light is there, and it's almost like I see the moment that they cross over, or at that time when they passed away. I can
Mhm.
look at them and I can say, yep, that person crossed. I'm seeing a replay of them walking through that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah. And then there's ones where I have to look a little deeper and say, okay, I'm looking for that reel of them walking through to the other side, to the light. You know what I mean? And if I don't get that, if I don't find that reel, then they're still here. And there are some that I know that are here for certain reasons. The majority of the ones that I run into, even if they don't interact, I automatically know, it's guilt. A lot of it is guilt. I run into a lot of people, a lot of spirits who are or feel that guilt, and they fear for retribution, for wanting to cross over. They're afraid to,
Right.
it's just, they would rather wallow in their sorrow, basically, and blame themselves instead of
Mhm.
trusting the spirits around them that are trying to help them cross over.
Mhm.
And it's almost like that they don't hear them because they're so consumed with that guilt and
Right.
that angst that it kind of like overshadows them. It's like somebody puts a pair of headphones on them and they
Right.
can't hear it. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I run into that quite a bit. A lot of it's guilt, and I, am respectful with them, and I run into some that in some places that have done some bad things, but I tell them, I'm not here to judge. You're not here anymore. You're deceased. I don't judge
Right.
you. You're not on this plane. That is irrelevant.
Mhm.
I'm just here to help you if you will accept my help. But some of them don't. Some of them just like, yeah, no, whatever. Don't help me. I don't want your help. And so
We come across that a lot.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's over. It's, yeah.
So I give them the respect of, okay, I'll give you space. if you
Right.
need something, but I always try to let them know, or let spirit know, to let them know that if they need help with something, that they can come to me, which I've had happen before too, and I've also had ones that don't like me because the fact that they could see my light and they know who I am, and then they have their own agenda.
Mm.
So, I got a couple gangsters that I work with. I work in an old building, and
Right.
they were there for a while, and one of them's really tall and one of them's really short, and the guy's named Shorty. And
Mm.
he's not very nice, but I give him the space and I respect him. You know what I mean? If I come across their space in some way, they're quick to let me know.
Mm.
So I just, and some people say, how can you deal with all that? How can it's just, I don't, you just do.
Sure.
If you're wired to do that,
Mhm.
then that's just, it's a normalcy for you. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's just, you just accept it for what it is. People
Mm.
think I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I know I'm not crazy. So,
No,
but
you're
yeah,
definitely not.
no.
I know the hard part that a lot of people ask me, especially I train internationally. One of the biggest questions I get is, why do you try to force these spirits into the light? And of course, we don't force any
No,
spirit into the
no,
light. That's
no.
sort of a sort of an understanding a lot of people have. It's like, why do
Hmm.
you force these spirits into light? Why do you coerce them? And like, never once in my career did I ever say that we force spirits into the light,
Right,
but we
right.
do try to acknowledge that they're in a limited reality. They're in a
Yeah,
limited amount of consciousness.
right.
And in that consciousness, they have a very limited amount of information, such
Hmm.
as they're not aware of their soul journey. They're not aware of their continuation of their existence past the reality of their life
Hmm.
in this one moment. There's an existence beyond their pain and suffering at that
Hmm.
moment right now. So for a lot of the people that ask me, like, why do you try to get these spirits to cross over? And my answer is, well, when you see a spirit in pain, don't you want to help? Don't
Hmm.
you want to say something? Don't you want to counsel to have them pulled out of that controlled reality that they're
Right,
creating
right.
themselves, and get them to have a different awareness of their
Hmm.
situation? That's what our jobs really is. It's not to cross them. We're here to change their awareness,
It's an
to give them
encouragement.
all the options.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
total encouragement. So it's not trying to force anybody. And I've kind of ran into that too. But
Right.
it's about just encouraging them to do what's best for them.
Mm. And I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, you really should just leave these spirits be, because they're not harming anyone. And to a certain extent, I agree with that, because if
Hmm.
they're not ready to go, sure, let them be. But after a certain amount of time, it does halt their evolution, their
Hmm.
ascension, their
Hmm.
growth, their their learning, all the wisdom that these souls can acclimate through the lifetimes and through the experiences. These souls are going to miss out on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think, do you ever get to a point where you try to be a little bit more assertive with these spirits, because they've been around for quite a long time, and it's probably time for them to start thinking about getting over to the other side?
Yeah, yeah. I've ran into a couple like that. Um, I just try to explain it to them in a way where they try to understand it, because there's sometimes that they just do not want to hear any of it, and
Yeah.
they are so set. It's kind of like, I use analogies a lot. So I I picture like a spirit that's been earthbound for a very long time. It's almost like standing in quicksand. They've accepted the fact that they're stuck. They've accepted the fact that they're not going to really do anything. But the little things that they do is they either can try to run havoc, or they can just try to get people's attention. It's just they just feel that they're limited to what they can do. Then there's other ones that force themselves to accept, I can do, they start trying to imagine they can do things more, they can, create themselves more to be what they are. And
Mhm.
a lot of that, the negative energy that they have can produce that in that spiritual sense. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like if they're around a place where it's got a lot of negativity or hatred or anger, that emotion can also transcend the other side. And so they can latch onto that, and that can make them, I wouldn't say more powerful, but it gives them a little bit more options. You know what I mean? So that they're not so stuck. Because I ran into a couple that shouldn't be able to do what some of them do, and they say, "Oh, that's a demon," or it's like, I have to tell people it's not everything's a demon. Okay, it's just like it could be a spirit that's a little bit advanced and gotten a little bit better with being earthbound. You know what I mean? So I just kind of try to relay that message to them. But yeah, I've ran into quite a few different ones. I don't really run into anything negative. I did an investigation up north of where I live in Wisconsin, and it was an old building, and it was probably around the times of the Prohibition. They had a lot of activity, like gangster activity and this and that. I didn't know that. I was going up there to investigate the paranormal with another person, and as soon as I pulled up in front of this building, excuse me, I was getting berated by foul language, by "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I was in the car, you know, and I was like, "Who is this?" Well, I had called another friend of mine who's another medium, and I said, "I've got this issue." You know, I said, "I don't really kind of know how to handle it." And this was early on when I was really starting to accept my gifts and this and that. And she said, wait a minute. Who is yelling at you? She could hear it on the phone. And then she realized, oh, that's who that is, because she had been at this location before. And so she knew who it was, knew his name. And yeah, it was just, that was something I had not experienced before. But as of late, I've also experienced that, where I've kind of been, where a spirit would come up to you who needs help or is angry, will get right in your face. I don't know if you've ever had that happen, where you've had a spirit.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, get in your face, and you have to, even though nobody can see this person, you could sense and see them with your mind. You could see them. You have to step back, and and I've had spirits do that, and that is unsettling in a way, because you're not expecting that. You know what I mean? So
Don't bother me. After a while,
well, it's happened. It happened a couple times when I got out of my car at a place where I was doing my podcast, and it was a haunted location. But the lady would come running across the street and be up in my grill, like, "You got to help me," and she was angry, and she was this, and then basically Spirit had to kind of intercede and say, "Just wait, you know, back up," and because I was doing something completely different, and I needed to do something completely different. Then I reached out, you know, I contacted with this young girl, found out her story, what happened, and all this other stuff, and she was so angry, and I said, explain to her, it's time to cross. You know, this isn't doing you any good here, and because the person that she was involved with was still there, and he's still there. And he's not the nicest guy, and I know his name, but out of respect, I won't tell anybody his name. I knew what he did, and I had that respect. You know what I mean? The rules of engagement for people don't apply on the same as living as it is to deceased when it comes to like judgment and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. You know, the person is gone. There's nothing to be gained over here by causing, you know, angry words or judgment or anything like that, you know, or it's just, your goal is to try to help that person, you know, try to help that person cross. And that's the bottom line.
Now, you had mentioned that Spirit had come in and intervened in your exchange with this woman. Can you explain a little bit about who that was?
I know exactly who that was. That was my guide. That is one of my guides, who is actually my grandmother. my mom's mom, because
Mhm.
when I was, and I didn't realize that that could actually happen. And I had I've had my guides, you know, for a long time. My grandmother held me when she was on her deathbed when I was born. So I was only 2, 3 months old, and then she passed away.
Mhm.
And so there was another lady, a friend of mine who's a medium, and she said, "You don't know who the name of your guide is." And I said, "I don't." She goes, "But you do." And then she said, "I need you to meet Gladys." And I said, "What?" And that, and then I could see my grandmother, my guide, raising her hands, going, "Surprise!" You know, and I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense." You know,
Mm.
so yeah, no, she's interceded with, she's kind of stepped in between me a couple times. If something is going on in that sense, she's always looked over,
Sounds like a protector.
very much so. And my mother is there too, but my mother is always in the back sitting on a chair, but she's not there all the time. She
Right.
disappears every once in a while. And like my father, I've only seen him once. My dad died when I was 18. Um, and that's where I think I get my gifts from,
Mm.
because he was always in his head, kind of like I am. And yeah, I wanted to find out. I've never interacted with him after he passed, except for once or twice. But from what I'm told, is that he is still learning, and so he's on the other side with whatever class or whatever he's got going on. He's got things that he has to do, and
Right.
that's just the way it is. I mean, it's just really weird how that works. When somebody passes that you were really close to, or a family member or something. With me, I usually know that they're over right away, and I kind of know what they got to do.
Mm.
And that's kind of cool. But
It's very
yeah,
cool
yeah,
because it's like you have a intuitive knowing
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
of the mission, the contracts, the connections, the soul
yep,
groups,
yep,
and
yep,
no one needs to tell you what they are. You just know
yeah,
what they are. Just like when you meet someone, you
mm-hmm,
know them. You know you've had
right,
previous encounters, other lifetimes with them. You know that you know them on the other side. But
yeah,
there's nothing there to say, oh yeah, we know each other before. It's just one of those glances of, "Hmm,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I know you,"
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing.
When you know, you know, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I find the older souls are the protectors,
mm-hmm,
the guides, because we do have guides, we have master guides, we have angels, we have teachers, we have mentors, we have protectors, and then you have your ancestor guides. And sometimes, specifically, if an ancestor guide is in your soul group, they're going to be like the head honcho. They're going to be the ones coming and saying, everybody step back.
right,
This
right,
is my guy.
right,
This is
right.
who I'm working
Yeah.
with. It sounds like that's what your grandmother did. Sounds like she's pretty a
Oh
force to
yeah.
deal with.
Well, and that's the whole thing. A lot of the friends that I have who are mediums that that I would meet for the first time or whatever, a lot of them would just like, I got to tell you, you have a lot of protection around you,
Mhm.
and it's amazing how much you have. And I'm like, that's great. Okay. Well, then I knew that I know my guys. I know the angels. I had two guardians, or two guardians, and they're
Mhm.
hooded figures. I don't know. They don't interact with me, but I know that they're there. But there's also, I know that I come from a line of an angelic line. I know I do. I was told that. I discovered that. I came from the Levi tribe um, eons ago, and I also had a medium tell me that you have been on every single major Earth Earth event, the way she described it.
No, you like showing up for the show, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I'm
I
like,
want to be involved in everything.
right,
Go back in.
So yeah, I mean, I take comfort in knowing that, I've accepted more so who I am, instead of, like I used to run away from it. And,
Hmm.
It's just one of those things where it's taken me going to be 52 years, to realize, I am who I am.
Right.
And
Well,
not,
some of
not,
us start early, some of us start late.
this is
Doesn't matter
true.
as long as we do the work.
That's right. That's right. And somebody else said to me too, I was talking to her, and she's not a medium. She's just a person I had ran into. And I was telling her about some of the stuff that I do in my show. And she said, you want to just help everybody. And I said, yeah, I have that mentality that I would like, if I could save everybody or help everybody, I would, just because I just have that in me, to help whoever I can.
Right.
So.
For sure. Now, you said you work a lot with the paranormal teams. How did you get involved in that?
Since it had been following me around since I was little, and inadvertently I would, do short investigations and this and that, years ago. And then after my stroke, I wanted to do something that meant something. And I started a paranormal team and called Wisconsin Paranormal Research. And I had some people on it that was okay, and it was good. And we didn't really do too many investigations because when COVID hit, and so we were kind of like out. But there again, then I didn't feel that I was doing what I was supposed to. It was kind of like somebody telling you, you're so close, but you're kind of missing the mark. And so I was like, okay, I like doing investigations, but then once I got more into my mediumship and start discovering who I was, I kind of got steered in that direction. I could still do the investigations and this and that, but my focus is my mediumship and my helping people and this and that. So not that I let my paranormal team go on the wayside, but they moved away, and I have one person left, and he's my camera guy, and we do stuff every once in a while. And so I just now mostly focus on my podcast and my mediumship, and that's kind of about it. I love to do investigations, don't get me wrong, but I really like to do psychic walkthroughs to help people, if they don't understand what's in the building or whatever, I can tell them.
Yeah.
And so that, they can be instructed to handle it accordingly. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing, when you're a medium, you don't necessarily need to investigate. You need to go just explore.
Right. Yeah. I had to learn that too, that I don't really need to, investigate, even though I do like to investigate with other people, but it's also that they get that validation as well as I do, working with a researcher and have somebody saying, yeah, that's right, or that's true, it's written right here, and so it kind of helps them with their evidence, and and it's kind of a whole mindset. The bottom line is, if you're going to help somebody, help somebody. And my personal opinion is, there are teams that do just investigate just to get their evidence and just to get that wow moment. But I have to ask them that, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to help somebody, or are you doing it just to satisfy your need to be scared, or to, people can do it as a hobby, but if you seriously are going to be stirring things up, then you should probably have somebody with you that can help clean it up.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. I feel the same way. Maybe I'm just judgmental as a medium, as a rescue medium, because our jobs are to come in and provide counsel, help to the spirits, where a lot of the paranormal teams come in just for the entertainment purpose of it.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's a ghost. And they're like, wait, are you going to do anything about it? And a lot of teams don't know how. So a lot of rescue mediums are joining these teams.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. Yeah, and that's the way it should be. I just think that you should have at least a medium or a rescue medium on your team, hands down. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, because you want to be able to fix what you're doing, or if there's something broke, or if there's something wrong. I mean, the team can go in there and investigate, and if the spirit's trying to yell at somebody or talk to somebody, but the person that you're trying to can't hear you, and all they're doing is waving their arms, going, these people can't hear us. You know, they're not gonna. All they want is for us to rap on the wall, and all they want for us to do is, you know, make this noise. And it's like, you gotta. And I tell paranormal investigators, think outside the box. You know, I mean, it's just
antagonizing spirits for the glorification
yeah,
of getting those results probably isn't the most moral thing to do. I think a lot of people forget that these are actually people
right,
that are out of the body.
right. And I've had to remind people that before. You know, these were once a living person. Show them some respect.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
I think it's changing though. I really do, because you know, when I started my rescue work 25 years ago, everything was paranormal. Nobody really talked about, because you know, working with earthbound spirits or ghosts, everything was paranormal. Nobody
Right.
talked about being it spiritual. There was either the spiritual community or paranormal community. There was nothing in between.
right.
back then. And I think we're really bridging that gap between spiritual and paranormal more than we have before, with the type of mediumship that we're doing, working more hand in hand, not calling it ghost hunting, but more investigative work, maybe spiritual investigations, or because it's like, I understand that earthbound spirits have been placed in the category of paranormal. I don't think they should be. I think they should be considered spiritual just as much as a spirit that's crossed over. A spirit is a spirit, one way or another. It's just depending on the vibrational frequency that they decide to reside in. That's the only difference. So I think with more education and more people like you getting on and speaking about your experiences and educating the public on what it really is, and not allow Hollywood or the media to train the public on earthbound spirits and spirit. We need to speak up more. We need to say more. We need to be able to help people understand that connection between paranormal and spiritual.
And that's what it is. And that's what it is the connections, the transfer of energies and frequencies. And a lot of I talk about frequencies all the time. You know, if you go to a location and the frequency, you don't find anything, or you don't get any EVPs, or you don't, sense anything, or your investigators don't find anything, the frequency wasn't there. It doesn't happen just because you showed up.
Right.
You know, and it depends on the energy that the person is going in there to investigate, or their intent. You know what I mean? If their intent is garbage, if their intent is just to cause trouble, that's what you're going to get.
Well, also, a lot of these paranormal teams don't realize that some earthbound spirits go into what we call a pause or a rest state. So they actually bring their energy back in, and they go into a state of just sleeping, where they're not looking around, they're not engaging in their.
I've seen that a couple different times and wondering, what are they doing? Why are they just sitting there? Well, I didn't know that before now, so now I know.
Well, that's why it's great to have a medium step in, because a up is like a lighthouse. They come in, they shine a light, they stir up the energy, the wake up. Like, oh, by the way, do you know that you're still here? Do you know that you're still in the earthbound state? So a lot of paranormal teams are using mediums just to stir up the energy, just to get the earthbound spirit to wake up as well.
Yeah, there's been times where I've gone into places and I've noticed that I'm like, yeah, I see spirits here, but they're not doing anything.
No.
And it just depends on, they're kind of like, there's a reason, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I always say that frequency is everything. There's so many, the way the world and the earth is now, and the energy around the earth and all that, things are changing and shifting. And people who are gifted like that will can feel dizzy, can feel sick to their stomach, can feel angst, can feel, and if they wonder, what's going on, why am I feeling this way? If you're gifted and you realize that, you pretty much know right away, okay, things are just shifting. I need to roll with it. I had that yesterday. Yeah, I had that yesterday. I was sitting outside and I went to, and I wasn't for like a couple minutes, and then I got up and I felt like my whole right leg was 1,000 pounds. I felt off kilter, and I was like, I've only had that happen probably 3 or 4 times in my lifetime. But that time I was just like, and I knew right away, I'm like, oh, it's a shift. There's some type of frequency shift, something's going on.
Mm.
And then I felt fine, and somebody would think, is there something wrong with me? Do I need to go to the hospital? I just know that's what it was.
You can
I
tell the
just,
difference.
yeah, the difference. Yeah. So.
So you said
But,
you
yeah.
do a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah. I am the host of Studio Six Paranormal Entertainment,
Mhm.
and I do podcasts, and I kind of bring awareness to the paranormal field, and I try to have people on my show who want to share their experiences as well as trying to educate people on certain things, like the way we were talking earlier. It's kind of like want to get that message out there for other people to be able to interact, and see a different side of things. And
Mhm.
my co-host is 80% paranormal, but he's also 20% skeptic because he's a scientist, and we're like the yin and yang, and it works. So, yeah, I like to talk like-minded people, but I also want to be able to interact with people in a way where kind of leaves an impression of positivity, and in that sense. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast, is because of the fact that I wanted to kind of bring that positivity out to people, especially in the paranormal field, so.
Well, that's true,
Um,
because the whole genre of paranormal, everyone wearing black, everything being dark, everything
Right,
being
right.
spooky and scary. And like, what are they what message are trying to give off with that?
Yeah. I wondered about that too. I like a lot of it is personal choice, and it's just that whole mystique of that.
Mhm.
But I really, in my eyes, it's kind of like, if you're going to be in the paranormal, why not be as bright as you can? And that's
like it.
just the way I look at it. But to each his own, and not to
Yeah.
talk bad about anybody that wears dark colors or nothing like that. But
I'm always wearing black.
yeah,
I-
that's my daughter's favorite color is black. So, but yeah, so it's just one of those things where reaching people and talking with people and just getting people to think, what could, or this or that. But I had a person on my show recently that was talking about provoking and how he used to provoke, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I don't agree with that. And I basically had to explain it to him. Yeah, we don't do that. This is why you shouldn't do it, but I wasn't berating him. I wasn't mean to him. I wasn't, you know what I mean? He was my guest, so I was just expressing in a way that he understood. And he had said some things that he agreed with, and he's like, yeah, if I got him to kind of think a little bit differently, then that's what I did. You know what I mean? So.
Well,
So,
Spirit
yeah.
obviously brought him to you
Yeah.
because you needed to be,
Mhm.
there to help inspire
Mhm.
him. And
Yeah.
it's all awareness. It's all, I don't
Right.
think anyone really has
Right.
an intention to do
Right.
harm.
Yeah.
It's just that's all they know.
Life lessons.
It's
Yeah.
way of living.
And that book's way too big.
Oh, yes. So how can people find you if they want to reach out to connect?
People can find me on pretty much every platform. So my show, Studio Six Paranormal Entertainment, is on iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube. Oh my goodness, Samsung Podcasts, Google
Wow.
Podcasts, Deezer Podcasts, Beanpod Podcasts, and I'm also on Twitter and Instagram as well. And it's all Studio Six Paranormal Entertainment. And then I have my YouTube. I think I have 50 episodes, and then I have couple handfuls, so maybe a handful on my other ones.
So has anyone ever given you the message that you're going to eventually transition from podcast to media and possibly YouTube or television?
Yes and no. Yeah, I've always said that I would love to get paid for what I'd love to do. I love my podcast. You know what I mean? If I could get paid to do it, that'd be great. But as far as I have an idea for a show that I had just kind of put out there,
Mhm.
and it's having to do with like being a rescue medium, and it's a really great idea, and it's about helping, and it's just, but it's not about the shows that some of the shows that are on today. It's something completely different. And somebody,
That's what we need.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I said that to a friend of mine, and he said, "Well, where's the hook?" And I said, "The truth." You know, this is, well, they usually want this person to act like this person. I said, if a company that's trying to get a new TV show and all they see are dollar signs, then they're in it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
If there's a person that feels like this is something that I believe in, or I feel like this could actually work, and your intentions are everything. If you don't have good intentions, you're going to be going down a lot of dead end roads. That's just my
Well,
opinion.
I always say, don't worry about getting a producer, because
Right.
you can create your own show, throw it up on
Right.
YouTube, you get a following. You don't have to wait for someone to come in and take control over
Right.
your creative thoughts and your ideas and
Right.
the
Right.
way that you truly want to express yourself
Mhm.
through the show. Don't
Right.
let
Right.
someone grab it and control it.
Right. Yeah. And I thought about that too, you know, and I thought about, this is this is an idea that I've had that I know that is spirit led because of who I am, and how I want to be able to help and interact. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's just,
Think about it. I see
yeah,
it as a group of people, more than you, a group of people all collaborating together on a
yeah,
really great project. So just
right.
keep in the
A
back of
lot
your
of it
mind.
has to do with a lot of it has to do with financial backing. I mean, that's just,
Well, that's why you need a lot of people. If everybody throws a little bit in
yeah,
the pot,
right,
not
right.
so bad.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so,
Spirit will find a way.
but yeah, I'm really kind of just, things are moving, and I know things are moving and things are changing, and I'm going into something, and I know it's coming, and I don't really know, I'm not privy to all that information yet, but I just have to trust spirit that things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
Well,
You know?
keep speaking up, because there's a lot of people that want to listen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on the show
It's
and
been
being
a
here.
real pleasure, and I thank you so much for having me. So,
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for tuning in with us today. I know we learned a lot. If you do decide to work with paranormal teams, please show off your wonderful mediumship ability and help those spirits into the light. They're not ready to go. Find a place of rest. Give them a little bit of things to think about, things to weigh on, and give them an excuse to get back over to the other side, because that's where they belong. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Bye.